Hello and welcome to the Categorically Romance podcast. I'm Aaron, and Bree is busy with other things today, but I am luckily joined by Tule author Lisa Lin. Lisa, welcome to the podcast. It's so good to have you.
Hey y'all, Aaron, thank you for having me. I'm really glad and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you. Do you want to get in some icebreakers with me?
Let's do it.
If you came with a warning label, what would it say?
Excess snark and sarcasm. Once you get to know me, like 60% of the time I'm being sarcastic and you shouldn't take me seriously.
You know, I have thought of how I would answer this question myself, and yeah, it was something to the degree of is likely being sarcastic.
And it can get me in trouble with people who don't know me that well and think I'm being serious. Oh, okay, we need to...
Yeah, you're like, oh, no, I'm sorry. That was just me being ridiculous.
Yeah, okay, we need to get to know each other better. Okay. Yeah. We're not there yet. Gotcha. We're not there yet.
Yes, my spouse and I had to explain sarcasm to our children very young because we speak it pretty much regularly to one another. And you know, we have times where we have a 4-year-old. Why are you two fighting? It's like, oh, we're not fighting. We're just being silly.
And it can sound mean if you don't understand that I don't mean what I'm saying.
Well, what is one of your guiltless pleasures?
I do love a good mani and pedi. But the thing is, like, then I get so prissy about my nails and then I'm useless the rest of the day because I don't want to ruin my mani. It's ridiculous.
I don't think you're alone in that one. I think a lot of people appreciate a good mani-pedi.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's in the hot water, they scrub and make it all nice and pretty and soft, and then they give you, like, a foot rub, and, like, the place I go to gives you, like, a hot stone, like, massage, too. It's fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just get to feel pampered for a while.
Exactly.
Can you name us one of your favorite childhood books?
One of my favorite childhood books. I loved The Babysitter's Club when I was growing up. I read those. Do you remember the Scholastic book fairs?
Yeah, or just like that little like newspaper order form thing that would go through your class every month. Yeah.
I like every year with the book fair, I would always get like the Babysitter's Club books. Then when I was like a teenager, then I transitioned into the Sweet Valley High books, but it was a Babysitter's Club for me.
I wish one of our founders, Sarah, was here because she has almost that exact same story. Babysitter's Club, Sweet Valley High, like those are just foundations for her reading. So it would be. But you'll have to come back and we have Sarah on. You guys can just take over the whole show together.
But like, I just have to do like a side note on the Sweet Valley High books. Like, have you seen them? Have you seen them with the original covers?
I have not. No.
Those are not 16-year-olds. Those are 30-year-olds on those covers. I need to talk to Sarah about that, please.
Yeah. That's the 90210 model, right?
Precisely. I believe
30-year-old high schoolers.
Yes, I believe Gabrielle Carteris was like almost 30 when she was in the show.
Uh-huh.
And I remember, like, I think they said Stockard Channing was like in her 30s when she was playing Rizzo in Grease.
Yeah,
so it's like a thing.
Well, can you tell us your romance origin story?
I was about 12 or 13. I've loved books ever since I was little. I've said it before and I'll say it again. One of the best things my parents ever did for me was take my sister and I to the library like regularly as a kid, and we both learned to love reading. It was fun. It was a hobby. It wasn't something that were cramming down our throats like eating our vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we learned to love reading. Like, I would be at Borders, or I would be at Barnes & Noble's, like, or my local bookstore. I would be walking around the shelves and checking things out, and then I was walking by the romance section, and I'm like, who is this Nora Roberts chick who's taking up, like, half the section, romance section? So I'm like, I pick one up, and then it was one of her McGregor books from her silhouettes.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm like, a matchmaking meddling grandfather. I'm intrigued. I read it and I loved it. There was so much to it. Like, there was like family and there was like friendships and like there was humor. There were funny books too. And I haven't looked back since. I've been a fan ever since. So if you're going to introduce yourself to a new to you genre, might as well go with one of the best, right? Why not go with Lenora?
Yeah. And listeners, don't sleep on Nora's old silhouettes. I know she writes a great tome, but Some of her older category books are still amazing reads.
Yes. And Harlequin or whoever has it, they constantly repackage them. So you can definitely find them. And sometimes like it really upsets the fans because they think it's like something new and then it's like,
Oh,
oh, it's just Harlequin repackaging her old stuff. I already got these books.
I'm always very excited when I hit a library sale and I find some old Nora Roberts categories in the mix there. It's
Mhm.
always a treat.
Yes. But the head hopping though, Aaron.
So, whose perspective am I reading from right now?
And then a paragraph later it's somebody different. And then like
Uh-huh.
maybe a line later it could be a third person. It became problematic when I started to write because I absorbed a lot of that through osmosis. So
Oh, uh-huh.
I had to beat that habit out of me. It was bad. All love and all respect for our queen, but that was something I had to train myself not to do anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes to show you that everyone keeps learning, no matter who you are.
For sure. But like I totally second your recommendation. Check out her old silhouette category stuff. There's some real gems in there.
Well, I have to congratulate you on the release of The Year of Cecily, which comes out January 17th, 2023. Please tell us what inspired this story.
Less than a week to go. Ah. The story was originally a novella that was going to be part of a holiday anthology that was going to be a non-Christmas anthology. So that's why it ended up being a Lunar New Year story. The anthology didn't end up happening, but my brilliant and wonderful agent and I sat down and she said, why not take that novella, rip it apart, and redo it as a full length? So that was the inspiration. That's kind of how it all started. And that is why the book has some of the tropes it does, because when I started this novella, one of the pieces of advice I got was pick a trope, second chances, reunited lovers, friends to lovers, because in a novella, you're just really constrained in word count and time and space. So picking one of those tropes where they know each other and have a past, like does a lot of that heavy lifting for you,
Mm-hmm.
and helps the reader, like makes it easier for the reader to go along. That like in such a short story, they're gonna fall in love and it's gonna be all happy and glitter and cupcakes and unicorns. And I think that was a really great piece of advice, and I think it worked really well.
Yes, I would have to agree. I found the Lunar New Year part really quaint, reading along with it. And it's like, oh, Lunar New Year. Okay, this is different. This is a nice change of pace, but it still had that sort of holiday feel to it.
Oh, I'm glad. And honestly, for my family growing up, that was the big holiday for us. My family and I weren't really into like Thanksgiving and Christmas. Like Lunar New Year was like our holiday. That was the holiday where my parents would go all out and break out like all the best stuff. We would just have a day off on Thanksgiving or Christmas. But New Year's was our holiday. I'm glad that came across. Like it's a holiday.
For those not in the know, what are some fun Lunar New Year traditions that your family had?
Definitely just having the family together with like a table full of food. My family also does the red envelope. There was that line in the book, like, and it came from real life. Like, there was this one New Year in like 15 minutes, I made $200 because there's just so many family and other friends, adults there, and all those $20 red envelopes add up. And I was like, I have $200.
Not a bad day.
Not at all. And my family and I, we don't observe like every one of them because obviously each family is kind of unique in their traditions and not, we don't all follow all of them. But, my parents were like really cognizant of the ones that like we really want to do, don't want to do anything that would bring bad luck. Like we want to like encourage all the fortune and prosperity and all that sort of stuff, like a new outfit, making sure the house is clean and get rid of all the bad energy from the past year, like stuff like that. Firecrackers and dragon dances and things like that. It's really a time for everyone to come together and celebrate and eat a whole ton of food.
Well, this question just came to me, so forgive me. But
Okay.
speaking of the new year and renewal and everything, this story starts out with Cecily creating a list of things that are going to make this next year really great.
Mm-hmm.
And from some readers' perspectives, Cecily's got a great life. She's got a lot of stuff already figured out. She's got a great job. She's got a loving family. Where did the idea come from that she needed to make things better?
The way I approached it was like, yes, she has her life pretty much figured out, but she is an attorney in a big major law firm in a major city. There are going to be work-life balance issues. So that, like you said, for some people may think she has it all, but does she really? Does she have that work-life balance? Like, is she living her best life when she's spending like 60, 70 hours a week at the office or working? And for a lot of people, especially in Asian cultures, especially if we're pushed to our parents, like we're really focused on our goals and like achievement oriented. And is that really the stuff that makes you happy? Like, what
Hmm.
is it that she actually figure out, like, what is it that's making her happy? Is she doing what she's doing because she wants to, or is it because she feels like that's the path that's been laid out for her? Is it what, is it what she is, like, what is really going to make her happy and fulfilled and living her best life?
Well, our main characters, Cecily and Jeffrey, have complicated relationships with their parents. It's
Hmm.
clear that their parents love them, but for this reader who is a parent, it was a bit heartbreaking for me to read some of the ways that their parents interacted with them. Can you talk a little about the parental dynamic of this book and what you want readers to take away from it?
Heartbreaking. I'm not doing my job because this book is not supposed to like break your heart.
I might have gone a little too strong on saying heartbreaking, but there were some times where there was a moment where Jeffrey's parents gave him $200 and said, "It's for you could save it to go back to medical school." And it's just like,
Oh,
how could you say that to him?
welcome to Asian parenting, Aaron. No, like, again, see, that was me being snarky, people. You picking that up? No, in all seriousness, it can be hard, especially because Jeffrey and Cecily were just born and raised in the US. So they absorbed a lot of that culture and that sort of upraising, but their parents are still very traditional. And to them, like, their mentality is, we love you, obviously. We want what's best for you. And we think this is the best path for you. So just listen to us and do this. Like, it's for your own good. Just trust us. And sometimes it's hard for both sides for them to navigate that gap and come to an understanding, like, I know you mean well, but this isn't what's going to make me happy. It's not about hurting you. Like, I'm not rejecting you or anything. It's just like what I need and what I want is different, and it's about communicating better because, like you read in the book, like sometimes like Cecily just like bottles all it in and it just comes out, and her mother's like, why didn't you just say something earlier? I'm not a monster. I would have understood that. And Cecily's like, are you
Would you?
that relationship is a work in progress, Aaron. I think we all know that.
Yes. Yeah. But that's
and,
okay. That's okay. We're all a work in progress, aren't we?
and I think all of us, like to some extent, with few exceptions, have like some areas with our relationships with our parents that are a bit tricky. Like,
Hmm.
I think all of us just have some sort of baggage when it comes to that sort of thing. And for me, part of it is also sometimes our actions and words can have, we can intend one thing, but it just can be interpreted in a completely different way from how we intended. For a lot of Asian parents, it's like, we're pushing you because we believe in you. We know you can do great things. Now go do great things.
Hmm.
And then sometimes it can be like received as, if I don't do these great things, I don't have your approval or things like that. And that's not what they mean. Have you ever read Courtney Milan's Turner Brothers series?
No, I have not read that series.
In the first book, the main character hero, Ash, comes back from India, I think abroad, and he left behind his two younger brothers, Mark and Smite. But he went off to India to build his fortune and provide for the family, etc., etc.
Hmm.
And throughout the years, all he's done is send a few letters and written by his man of business, and then he may just scrawl, "Love Ash, be well," all that. And Mark and Smite are like, seriously? You can't even be bothered to write this letter. Like, you have someone write it for you and you just scrawl the signature. But you come to find out that Ash is dyslexic, so he can't write. So when he writes those few words, they
Hmm.
come from the bottom of his heart and take so much effort,
Yeah.
and time. So that's the kind of thing like I was thinking about. Sometimes like you just feel like, especially when it comes to the people closest to you, maybe our perspective of them can be a little skewed because we are so close, and maybe we don't have a full understanding,
Hmm.
and maybe it can be different from what you think it means. You
Right,
know?
right. So, like being so close to our loved ones almost gives us a sense of overconfidence in who we think they are.
And who we are to our family is is different than who we are when we're at work, who we are with our friends. Like we all contain multitudes, and sometimes like the the one multitude we see may not be the full story, you know.
Hmm.
And things change when like, and in that book, like once Mike and Mark figure it out, like it is like a real turning point in their relationship, and the brothers begin to heal, and their relationship begins to heal. But it's not until they understand that. And I felt like in the book, Cecily also had to come an understanding of why her mother is so hard on her. It's not because she's criticizing for the sake of it.
Hmm.
It's because she actually believes in her daughter so much,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't come out the way that Cecily necessarily needs it. But there it is.
Thank you for giving that. Sorry, I made you go on such a long explanation.
No, of course
I
not.
appreciate it.
No, of course no. And I also feel like it also be something that's just not in the Asian parents. Like I feel like it's also a lot in immigrant communities, because
Hmm.
these parents are just so focused on survival, building a life. Like they may not, have the time or patience or understanding to attend to those things on the higher up on the hierarchy of needs.
Yeah. Yeah.
The self-actualization and the self-esteem,
Uh-huh.
like those seem to be lower on the priority list.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. That's more about establishing the foundation of being in a
New
setting down roots in a new
country.
country, new culture.
Yeah. I also wrote that scene where she meets with the genealogist, and Millie makes her think about those people, the giants whose shoulders she stands on, those
Hmm.
people who paved the road for her. And I think hopefully that also helps the reader, and I think it helps her kind of just see things from a different and bigger perspective, and kind of just changes things a little bit. It gives her the space to have a little more patience and grace and understanding for the insanity that is her family.
That genealogy moment in there actually hit pretty close to home with me
Mhm.
because my paternal grandmother is full Japanese and my paternal grandfather is born and raised in Texas and New Mexico. And so there was some contention about whether that marriage was accepted or not when it came to her parents.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, especially in the day and age we're talking about with your grandparents,
Uh-huh. Yes.
there
Yeah.
may there may have been some work to do, Aaron. There might have been just a little bit of work for the great grandparents to come around.
Yeah, there was some work to be done, but they both did come around.
Sometimes, like I don't know, like some things are universal, and sometimes grandbabies have a habit of smoothing things out a lot. But thank you for sharing that with me. Wow, like you never know how interesting people's backgrounds can be. You never know, like all these interesting stories. Everyone has these stories. And that's why I love those shows like Finding Your Roots and Who Do You Think You Are. I love those genealogy shows. That
Hmm.
was kind of the inspiration for that scene, because
Oh yeah, yeah.
I love when you find out like, what? Uncle TJ was only born 7 months after the wedding?
Right. Yeah.
But he also came in at like a robust 9 pounds and 12 ounces? Grandma and grandpa?
Uh-huh. What we picture of the morals for the time back then, right? And then what
Oh
we
my
come to learn,
look.
right?
Like all the celebrities are just shocked when they find out like great Uncle Frank was like a bigamist, had like another whole other family on the other side of town.
Uh,
Like I love that. Like, and I don't one of the things I never understood is people who talk about like you said, the morals back then and the values back then in the good old days. And I'm like, I guarantee you there were some teenagers getting it on in the back of some Chevys at prom back in the day. Trust me.
uh-huh. Yeah.
Drugs drugs and rock and roll is nothing new. They just
Right.
the girls who got in trouble just got sent off to grandma's for the summer or something until they had the baby. Like it was just covered up. It doesn't mean it didn't happen, people. There was
Hmm.
some shenanigans happening in the back of those Chevys.
People have been people since there have been people. We've always acted this way.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm glad you understand. Like you're feeling me on this.
Well, one thing that I really loved about this book was the relationship between Cecily and Rachel. These two had every opportunity to be enemies and stay enemies, but instead they became good friends. So, can you tell us more about Cecily and Rachel's friendship?
the comparison game, like when they talked about like how each of their parents talked to them about the other.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up that way. Like, do you think Lauren like talked back to her parents like you did? Like, look how hard she worked. She listens to her parents, not like you. The comparison game is strong. It is strong. Like, everyone else's kid is just better behaved than you. Everyone. It's just the way it is. Like, she made the honor roll. Why didn't you make the honor roll? I thought it would be fun instead of making them like continue to be nemesis. Like, I thought it would be like, why don't they just bond over their like Asian parenting? You
Mm-hmm.
know, like when they're like, oh my god, that's what happened. They did this to us. Oh my god, and you will see more of their friendship develop in the second book. So, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, our hero, Jeffrey, he has some internal struggles with feelings of inadequacy or not being worthy of others. This affects him in his career and his personal life. Can you tell us how you came up with this part of his character?
The first thing is I had to figure out a way to like figure out what happened that broke them up 10 years ago and why he did it, but have that reason be one that the reader's not going to hate him for and render him irredeemable in his eyes. So
Yeah.
it had to be something where he's thinking, I'm doing this for her own good, even though he's just being a stupid man about it, or like
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. And for him to say, the best thing I can possibly do is just make a run for it and like do a clean break. To me, that just is not the sign of someone who's like really confident in himself and knows what he wants in life and has his shit together. So to me, that's kind of like how his character developed, at least in my head. And then also, for me, for this to work, like he has to actually be sorry about what happened. Like there has to be genuine regret. Like he has to mean it. He has to be sorry and mean it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it
Absolutely.
just yeah, so like it so that's for me, that's what kind of makes sense why he's like a little unsure of his footing. Like it just would not for me, it would not work if he just swaggered back into town and said, "Baby, I'm back." You know, like
Uh-huh.
that's just not gonna cut it. So for that whole thing to make sense, I just felt like it had to be him. He was just in the bad place, Aaron. He went to the
Mm-hmm.
bad place. So he had to go on a little journey of self discovery, and it took him time to get himself together and figured it out, but he did. As a writer, I think all of us writers will have a little bit of insecurity because we put our work out in the world and then it's out there to be judged and critiqued and eviscerated. So that's hard. It can be hard to put yourself out there like that and still have a good sense of who you are and some like self-confidence when you've been ripped apart. so so to me, like that's kind of how his character made sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Hopefully it will make sense to you, made sense to you, and hopefully it will make sense to the readers.
It did make sense to me, and I really liked his journey. Well, another favorite part, and it had me a bit groaning too, but laughing at the same time, is when family was trying to set up Cecily with one of their hairdresser's sons. And it was just like so many steps removed of, oh no, but you should go out.
I think it was like her aunt's hairdresser's
Yeah,
neighbor's son or something
right.
like that.
Has anyone ever tried to set you up on a blind date?
No, but maybe I could have used some help because someone once told me like I went on a date and didn't know it. But that's a different story for another time.
I've heard of those. Yeah.
I didn't think it was. Maybe I don't know. No, I haven't. And if my friends tried, like, and if it didn't go badly, like that could be hard to come back from.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope you're not trying to set up your friends with your neighbor's hairdresser's nephew.
No, I promise. No, I promise.
I mean, maybe he's a
I
really great
promise.
guy, though. So who knows? But I mean, that's a romance
That poor
story in
guy.
itself, right?
Like I don't know if you've experienced that, but like the grandmas, like sometimes like they'll just like want to match make you. They want you married off, and they're gonna do whatever they have to do to make it happen.
Well, let's talk writing process for a sec here. When you sit down for a writing session, what are your must-haves and what is your process?
Unfortunately, I am a pretty slow writer, and usually my goal is about like 500 to 1,000 words a day, 1,500 if I'm really lucky and having a really
Yeah.
good day. Sometimes I think that helps because I think if I force myself to do one of those where like I sit for 3 hours and like cranked out 4,000 words, it would be a mess.
Uh-huh.
It was just so hopefully by taking my time, hopefully I write a little cleaner and it saves me a little time on the back end when it comes to like revisions and
Yeah.
edits. That's what I'm telling myself at least. One of the things that really helped me write, particularly Rachel's book, is there is this YouTube video from How the Music, and it's like the best of Mozart. And for somehow, like it would just help get me into the zone when, like, okay, it's time to write, and I would just pull that Mozart playlist up. It's time to write. Get those 500,000 words in. Sometimes, if I'm desperate, I will just send out a tweet. I need to write 1,000 words. Like somebody yell at me and make me write. Like that also helps. Because now like I'm accountable to Twitter, Aaron,
Uh-huh.
like I gotta do it now. It's out
Oh,
there.
so you just put it out to Twitter. It's not like you call your editor and be like, kick me in the butt. No, you just ask the strangers on Twitter to do it for you.
My Twitter and look, Romance Landia comes through. Like I will get tweets. Go right. Like Miss Bev even told me, like tweeted back once, like keep your butt in the chair. I'm like, yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Like
when
don't
Miss
say no
Bev
to me.
tells you to keep writing, you keep writing.
You keep writing. You keep writing. Like, oh. And Sarah McLean has a system where she's like, you just write 50 words and then another 50, and then you double it, and then you do that, and then you get 500 words. So sometimes she'll just tweet at me, 50 words, go. And I'm like, if SMAC tells me to write 50 words, I got to write 50 words.
Yeah.
That is my process. Like, just sometimes, like, I prefer it silent. Sometimes I need a playlist. It kind of depends on my mood, but whatever it takes to get those words down, like, that's the right way
Yeah. Yeah.
for me.
I've heard, I can't remember who said it. It was either Denise Wheatley or Pippa Roscoe said, writing a book is a game of inches. You fight for every single line you put on the page.
I love Denise so much.
Oh, isn't she great?
She is the sweetest. Yes. Like, I remember I was talking to someone who did NaNoWriMo, and they were kind of like disappointed in themselves because they gave it was their first time ever doing NaNoWriMo, and this was their first time doing writing at all.
Yeah.
And like, but I also did tell them, do not send off your NaNoWriMo masterpiece off to any editors or agents on December 1st. Do not do that. Like, okay, can we do a side note? Is that actual thing? Because I also feel like that's an urban legend, but apparently it is a thing. People do that. Just send off their nano masterpieces on December 1st.
Well, so I have, by some miracle, I don't know how I did it at this point. I have completed 2 manuscripts. They probably will never see the light of day, but I was very proud of them when I finished them. So
as you should be. Like, a lot of people say they want to write, very few do, and very few like finish. So go you.
Well, thank you very much. But I could definitely see someone sending it off right away because that's your baby, and you fought tooth and nail for it. So
for every one of those 50,000 words, baby. But unfortunately, they only got like 10,000, and I'm like, that is a win. That is 10,000 words you didn't have before. So don't beat yourself up. Like 50,000 is kind of like it's the point of Nano isn't like to fight the 50,000 words. It's to establish the habit and develop the discipline to sit through those sessions when you don't feel like it and push through and write. And for me, and I don't know if it's for you, sometimes it can be a hard balance because sometimes you do need to give yourself a break and say, it's okay, the words aren't happening today. Like, I'm going to pick it up tomorrow. And there are some days where you just do need to dig deep, summon that grit and discipline, and just push through.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just depends, and you have to trust yourself and know the times when you need to push through, and sometimes when you have to say, I'm throwing in the towel for the day. And when you do, the point is you pick up and you get back on that horse the next day or the day after. But the point is you get back on that horse and keep going.
Yeah.
And that's the point. And I told her that is the point, to keep going. It's not about 50,000 words. And you have 10,000 to work with you didn't have before. So that is a win.
Exactly. Yes. So congratulations to anyone that just participated in NaNoWriMo or just is trying to establish a writing habit. Like, you're doing the work. So be proud of yourself.
Exactly.
Is there anything, Lisa, that you can tell us about the Rachel experiment that comes out in May 2023?
Well, it is an opposites attract and a one night stand.
Oh.
So a book just, well, it's not a spoiler. Like, it's on the back. It's up for pre-order. So it's Luke. It's the guy Cecily had that awful like blind date with. I felt for the guy, Aaron. I'm like, you know what? You were a good sport about this, and you're cute, and you're a nice guy. Like, let me find someone for you. You
I
know.
felt a little bad for him too, because it's just like, well, obviously Cecily's not going to be into this guy and this this whole get back out there to break yourself out of whatever stupor. It's not going to work.
No. And he knew right away. So and there's I'm like, you can cut this out if you think it's too much of a spoiler, but basically what happens is she's up for a promotion at her job, but to do that she has to transfer to the San Francisco office. So that brings her back into the sphere with Cecily and Adrian and the squad. And she just ends up at this honky tonk. And she meets Mr. GQ, Luke, like, who gets her to drink. She drinks some tequila, and somehow he convinces her to get right on the mechanical bull. The next thing they know,
He's the
they're
bull.
back at his place. No, she actually does ride the mechanical bull, and he is impressed because like she's looking at this, and I'm like, and she's like, okay. I maybe need to hunch down and have a lower and better center of gravity. And he's like, are you trying to math your way out of this? And she's like, math and science. So, and then they run into each other again, and they decide, like, it's a quid pro quo. Like, he is going to help her because he's such a people person. Like, everybody loves him. So, like, and whereas, like, she is an awkward turtle, as am I. So they come up with a deal. Like, he is going to help her with those social skills and networking and leadership skills and help her, like, make because she's on probation with this promotion. So he's going to help her land the promotion. And he's been thinking about opening his own practice, and she is a financial analyst. So what she's going to do is help him do some research and run some projections and do some budgets and things like about how much, look at the legal market, how much it would cost, rent, and the whole thing. So, like, but the only rule is they're going to be friends. Like, we're going to set the naked aside. It's platonic in a business thing. All clothes are staying on.
Well, I'm going to take the bet that the clothes don't stay on.
I think that's a safe bet.
That sounds incredible, and I can't wait for the book to come out. I'm so excited about it.
You only have a couple months left. It comes out in May.
Well, getting into some roundouts. What is one book you wish you could read again for the first time?
I would have to say Tessa Dare's A Week to Be Wicked. It is one of those books that just, like, really imprinted on me. The enemies to lovers, like the crazy road trip to Scotland, the Alpine Princess Assassin, the sword swallowing.
Oh, and Tessa Dare is a comedian. I laugh so hard at her book. They're so funny.
I love her books, and so much. And I owe her a great debt because she was one of the first people to tell me what I said I was just thinking about writing. And like, she's like, go do it. You should do it. So if it wasn't for her, I would have never done it. So thank you, Tessa.
Big shout out to Tessa Dare.
We love Tessa.
What's a romance you've read within the past few years that reminded you of why you love the genre?
I mean, like, do I have to just pick one?
No. We make the rules, and you can do whatever you want.
I love Kennedy Ryan's Queen Move.
Oh, I haven't read that one.
It's so good. You will never look at trampolines the same way. Just like if you've read Tessa Dare's 3 Nights with a Scoundrel, you will never look at a piano the same way again. I love Kristen Callahan's Managed. I am a diehard fan of Gabriel Sunshine Scott. I don't know if you've read her VIP
I
series.
haven't, no.
Only Kristen Callahan could write a book about a series with rock stars and have one of the heroes just be the band's like the group's manager and still make it work.
Right. Pick the most the most boring job title, it seems, in a rock band, and
It makes it
yeah.
work. And I love JC Lee's Book on a Feeling and the food and she wrote about like the heroine like opening up her bookshop. And I'm like, yes, JC, you're ticking all, like, to quote Paul Hollywood, you're ticking all the boxes for me.
Yeah.
So I remember like I at one point I was like, these two just need to bang already.
I love that in a romance book where I'm shouting at the characters to just do it already.
Just bang already. Exactly.
Well, what is one hill you will wholeheartedly die on?
That I don't understand why people swoon over the Phantom and Phantom of the Opera. He was creepy, stalkery, and a murderer.
Yeah. That's, he's like he's literally like the theater kid that got stuck in the basement and is way too obsessed with the play he wrote.
Exactly. And Sex on the Beach is not that sexy. There's just sand all over the place that could get into areas you don't want to get out. It's just no bueno.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't
salt
like,
water up your
I
nose.
don't care
like,
how.
Yeah.
No. Those are my hills.
I love it. I love it. Great hills to die on. I'm there with you on them.
Thank you.
Well, lastly, Lisa, where can everyone follow you online?
I am La Foresta One on Twitter and Instagram. That's usually where I'm most active and where you can find me. I'm also at Lisa Lin Author, I think, on Facebook, and Lisa Lin Books is my website, so that's where you can find me.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a real
Thank
pleasure.
You for having me. Oh, thank you. I had fun too.
Well, you'll have to come back and we can talk about the Rachel experiment when that comes out.
I'm happy to do so, and make sure Sarah comes back. So I need to talk about Sweet Valley High books with her and the Babysitters
Yes,
Club.
I will try and set that up. I'll make it happen.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for the kind things you said about the book. I really appreciate it.
Oh, of course.
Thank you.
Yes, it was a great book.
And I'm so glad you're excited about Rachel's book too. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, listeners, check the show notes. You can find all the places you can follow Lisa Lin online. Thanks for listening and have a good night.